Well, hey, Jeff, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and looking forward to having this conversation.
Good, yeah, I've been looking forward to it as well. So let's get straight into it. What are you going to be showing me how to do with AI today?
So, I definitely don't consider myself an AI expert, but I feel that it's been a tool that I've got to use more and more. And as I've used it more and more, realize there's so many ways that I can utilize it in what I'm doing
Mm,
that isn't, at first, to be honest with you, when I first started using it, some of the things I was doing, I felt like, am I cheating? Is this authentic? Is it me? But I really started to feel like, no, it's a way for me to take what I'm doing and just better the quality of it. And so what I
mm,
want to go through today is actually, in my business, I create a lot of funnels, I create a lot of webinars, different things like that. And in a recent webinar that I wanted to create for an opportunity I had, I thought, what, this is a way that I can really outline it the way that I intend to. And so I was
mm.
able to really, I think I kind of maximized what I was able to do. There's probably a lot more I can do as I go forward, but it's probably the most in-depth project that I've worked on using AI.
Nice, yeah, and I like that. This is perfect for me because I do webinars pretty much every week, and we make a lot of new ones, and it would be great to save a bunch of time and make them better than ever. So I'm looking forward to this. All right, go ahead.
So what I did this time is, as I said, I've done a lot of different webinars in the past, and I follow a structure that Russell Brunson created called the perfect webinar script. And in that, it's got a really good outline on how to create it. And in the past, I've used different formats of that. And as I was going through this whole process, I thought, I think this is an opportunity to really maximize it. And so what I did, and I can show you on the screen here, is I created a project in ChatGPT, and I wanted it to think and act the same way Russell Brunson would with his webinars. And so
Hmm.
I started, as you can see here, is I just said, hey, this is the project I'm going to create, and I want it to follow this outline. And so I started by loading a lot of Russell Brunson's content that I already had, everything from scripts to books to the
Oh
perfect
wow.
webinar script itself, and a lot of different presentations. I've had the opportunity to do some coaching for his company, so I had access to a lot of
Hmm.
different presentations and stuff that he's had. And so I probably overkilled on it, but I just really loaded a lot into it and said, I want you to use all of this information, and then we're going to create a webinar from it. And so I did. As
Cool.
you can see here, I'll scroll through it. There's a lot here that I loaded. And so over time, got that all in there. And then I went about and said, okay, first of all, I want to create a webinar based on the perfect webinar script. And let me just look and see exactly where I had that. So I got that all loaded. I think this is. And then I basically went in and no, then I. Sorry, I've
Oh,
got a
you're
lot
good.
of
Yeah.
stuff in here.
I know and actually this is good for people to see too, right? Because I mean, you got it even better organized than some folks do. But yeah, this is one of the challenges is all the different chats you get into, isn't it?
Yeah, because I did have it all within one project, but as I went about it, so after loading all of Russell's stuff, I loaded the information about the opportunity that it was going to be based on. And then I got into actually figuring out the script of the. There it is. So then I said, okay, I want to follow the perfect webinar script and actually create the outline of this webinar. And so I started there and I went through everything on when I do this, how am I going to create traffic to it? How am I going to promote it, all of those things, and created a full strategy. Used that, and then actually got into creating, I believe it was in this one. Here's the strategy behind it.
Huh. Well, so let me ask a question right here, because I
Sorry.
see something that,
Yeah.
that I noticed. So you've got one of the things that I think is frustrating to a lot of folks with ChatGPT is, you'll tell it what you want to do, and then it'll start asking you questions, but it asks you like 15 questions all at once, and it's like, man, how do I answer all this? But I see that you actually said, hey, ask me those questions one at a time. So yeah, I mean, is that something you've kind of learned that you have to instruct it on, or how did you decide to go that route?
Yeah, that's a great point. So on all of these things, as I was doing it, telling it what I wanted to do, it would do that. It would shoot out 20 questions, and I didn't want to go through it that way. So I said, ask me one question at a time, and was able to, go through each question, put it in its memory, and then able to create all the different scenarios there. And then what's on the screen here is then it actually helped me build the actual script for the webinar itself. As you saw earlier,
Wow.
it created the marketing plan, all those different things. But this was actually building a script that I used, and I just kind of used it as notes as I went through it and recorded the script. But it went through the whole process of the perfect webinar. So I created that script, used that, and as you can see here, there are some things in the script I was like, what, these are some things that it missed, and so I, had to update a few things. And I thought overall it did require some prompting and doing different things, but in the end, I felt like it created a pretty good script following the perfect webinar that I wanted to, and kind of focusing on the different areas. Now, part of it too is this same webinar is something I do live quite often, but I wanted to create it in more of a condensed version. And so it really kind of gave me the ability to hit all the topics, but condense it a lot more, which I thought was really useful.
Yeah, wow. So is there, I mean, as you're kind of going through this process, because obviously you uploaded a lot of additional kind of training information for it to take a look at. Once you got to that point, I think one thing I think a lot of people struggle with is this idea of like, how do I talk to the AI? I've had that question a bunch before, right? So like, once it has that, are you still providing a lot of structural guidance? Like, are you saying, did you have to go through and say, no, that's not how Russell's systems work, you need to do this? Or was it more that it was just saying, hey, tell me about yourself and your business, but it was getting the structure right the entire time? What was your experience there?
I found that it's been pretty good. There's sometimes that I'll enter something that I need to make some corrections, but I've used Russell as an example quite a bit, even before I loaded all this information, and it was pretty dang good on knowing, the tone or voice Russell Brunson would speak in. And so I thought that's something that I've really liked is, even in my emails, a lot of times, even before I loaded all this, I would say, I want to create this email in my voice in the tone of Russell Brunson. And it's done a very good job knowing that tone. In fact, yesterday, I was writing a text to a business associate, and I just took a chance to see what it would do and said, write this text. And I gave it the details and said, do it in the tone of Chris Voss, who's the author of Never Split the Difference. Sure. And it was really good. And so a lot of those things, people that have a lot of content out there, I think it's very good at doing that. And so
just from scratch,
did I need from scratch. Like I said at the beginning, I loaded a ton into this project. I probably was overboard, and it probably could have done just as good of a job without as much as I loaded. But I wanted to kind of go deep, and I wanted it to be in there for other projects I do as well.
Oh, right, because it'll remember that information. You can kind of continue referencing it later, right?
Yeah, and I've done that even since I created this project. I've been in other projects that I've said, from your memory, and I don't know if this is the proper way to do it, but it works for me. I'll say from your memory of what I've given you about XYZ, use that information from a previous project in this, and it's done a really good job at helping me do that.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, so one question I have, obviously, so you've got kind of two layers here, right? You've got the base AI knows what it knows about these types of people, and then you trained it further with more information. Do you so my question is how much of Russell's system, because you obviously, you've worked with the guy's company and you know all about him, you read his books, everything there. Do you think people can skip that part is kind of my question, right? So could I go into the AI and just say act as let's say I don't know who he is specifically, act like a expert webinar creator, and then it's going to do the same process? Or do you find that knowing a specific person and having actually studied their technique is that a part of the process that's important, do you think?
I think that is valuable. I don't think it's necessary. And if you're saying act as a expert webinar creator, I'm sure it's going to pull from different resources. So knowing, for example, what Russell teaches, what his systems are and stuff was valuable for me because that's how I wanted it to outline. But even so, you could go in there and tell it to tell you what the perfect webinar script is, and it's going to outline that for you. And then from there, you're able to build on it from there.
Wow.
Knowing specifically, someone that's in Russell's world and has read his books, they're going to know the things he teaches in .com secrets. They're going to know the things he teaches in expert secrets, traffic secrets and stuff. And those are the things that I wanted to implement specifically. And so that was valuable for me to be able to reference them exactly. Could I have created a good webinar and funnel and everything without having those specifics? Probably, but it wouldn't have been exactly what I was looking for. And so I think there is some value if you know Russell Brunson or Jim Edwards or someone specific that you want to create some content like them. It's very valuable that way, I believe.
Interesting. Yeah, and I would imagine too.
The next part
a webinar.
I went. Sorry.
Oh, I think we might have gotten unsynced a little bit here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think we're on a little bit of a delay. We'll deal with it though. But yeah, I was gonna ask, I guess with that. I would imagine with a webinar, knowing what you having a vision, right? This is a presentation. This is something where you got to be compelling, and sort of the more buy-in you have to the concept is probably really helpful, right? So if I come in and I've studied Russell's approach and I've seen him do webinars and I like that style and I want to emulate it, I'm probably going to deliver that webinar a lot better than if I just make something generic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of in a previous situation. I had done a number of webinars in the past and done them under my own structure in my own way. And then as I learned Russell's structure, I specifically was doing one and I thought, you know what, I'm going to follow that structure to a T and see how it goes. And I crushed it. It was best outcome of a webinar I've done. And so I was bought in at that time. And so from that point on, I'm like, yeah, that's the structure I'm going to follow. And, success leaves clues, right?
Right. Well, let me ask on that then. Having done your own version and then having switched to Russell's, what would you say is the biggest improvement, or what's maybe the most important part of his system that you found?
A lot of it would be there's a real sales process behind it. And one of the things I was doing before is I think I was giving away too much information, and I wasn't leading to that end sale rather than trying to please the customer. I was just given too much. And through his system, it really breaks it into the pieces where there's a lot of structure to it, and you're put in a position to really have a good closing at the end.
Very cool. Yeah, sales is not the easiest thing in the world, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. So I imagine following a rigid structure, especially one that's been customized for you, is probably a lot easier to feel confident, when you're going into that. So Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, so I know as this part of this process, you talked about, we got the webinar script. It looked like you had some ideas for some TikToks. What else did this come up with? I mean, how much of the overall process? I mean, did you get into? I mean, it looks like you maybe have some landing page copy here. So just
Yeah.
just show us the rest of what you did with the AI here.
So that was the next part. I wasn't doing it as a live webinar. It was pre-recorded. So I recorded the webinar, had all that set up, and then I wanted to create the landing page and the webinar page. And so I went in and just specifically said that, use everything that we've input, use the script that we've created, and then I gave it the specific type of landing page we were going to use, and it created that. We went through it, and I made some adjustments as we went, but overall it created that. And I'll pull it up right now.
Sure. Yeah, it's amazing how far you can get now with these tools. I mean, even just to think they've only been out for like maybe 2.5, 2.25 years at this point, and designing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
basically making a whole funnel from scratch. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely not a strong copywriter, and so to be able to create hooks and do it in the tone of someone that is a great copywriter, it's very valuable. So
Yeah,
it outlined the whole landing page for me, gave me all of this,
Wow.
and then from here, it's a matter of they click on it, put in their information, and it takes them
That's that.
directly to the webinar here. Yeah.
Wow, very cool.
So it was, I mean, time-wise, it was amazing how much time it saved me, but also just feeling the quality was so much better than if I had just, I've created a lot of landing pages and different stuff like that I always do split testing, trying one way versus another, and improving them all the
Right.
time. But I felt like it was a lot better quality from the beginning, and I probably will still be making some adjustments and whatnot. But overall, it came out with a better result, I think, than if I had just started from scratch doing it on my own.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's a kind of cool effect here. It's like you can still do the testing, you can still try things, but the idea of like your baseline is just so far elevated now. Which, I mean, for those of you watching, I mean, that's a competitive advantage right there, right? I mean, this is something that if you're not using these tools, I mean, people that are, they're making more, they're making it faster, it's higher quality from the start. Very hard to keep up with that if you're not using AI at this point, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, going back to the landing page, anytime you're building a landing page, it's that hook and whatnot that's going to grab people's attention. And being able to, if I go back to, I'm sure it's going to be in here, but I'll often say, okay, let me just scroll down here. Well, don't have it right there, but I'll say, even in subject lines of emails or whatever, it'll give me a great one, but I'll say, give me 10 versions of that. And then I'll be able to go through it and, decide which one is the best version to use.
Wow. Really, there's like no steps here that, I mean, the one step I guess it doesn't do is you have to still deliver the webinar and get on camera and all that, right?
Right. And I'm sure there's ways that it would do that too, but no, I definitely wanted that. I don't want it a AI generated version of me. So yeah, I still do the recording. And when I did it, I created the script, but then I had it create it kind of in bullet points so that it wasn't me just reading it, that I was using those to talk on those subjects, but it was still myself doing it.
Wow, that's awesome. So let me ask on that, right? Because I mean, that's an area that I think a lot of people are tempted to do, right, is to go the direction of like, let me have an AI avatar and it's just going to read my script for me and I don't have to ever get on camera. I mean, I teach people how to get on camera, so I deal with this all every day.
Yeah.
What's your opinion there? I mean, is it important that it's you, or do you just feel like the technology's there not there yet, or what were your thoughts there?
Well, I guess it depends on what you're doing and what your business is. You know, for myself, I teach a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with all about authority marketing and being able to be that authority in your space. And if that's the case, it needs to be you. You know, you've got to be able to build that relationship with your clients and be the authority in your space. And I think if you're using an avatar or something, that's going to work against you that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, I mean, that is going to be interesting. I think we're going to see, there's a lot of folks now that like a lot of their posts they put out, they're not written by themselves, and they're starting to. I know a woman who's really really impressive when it comes to AI and runs an agency and whatnot, but some of her YouTube videos are not her, and you almost can't tell because it's really high level AI avatar stuff. And that's my question: is it's always just like, yeah, but at what point do people just not trust your face anymore? Like am I ever going to get on a Zoom meeting in a couple years, and am I going to have to question if I'm actually talking to you or not? And that to me is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that'll bother everybody. It may not, but for me, that does seem like there's got to be a line somewhere, right? It's like, it's got to be still you on camera, or you need to note when something's maybe written by the AI versus yourself. But obviously, when it comes to the brainstorming and the planning and the content creation and marketing copy, which is always kind of weird anyway, right? I mean, we don't typically talk the way we write marketing copy. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a debate, right? It's something that's kind of ongoing, and it will be interesting to see where the average person lands if we get to the point where everything on the internet's just all AI and nothing's real anymore and nobody cares, or if there is a little bit of pushback there. But I'm on the pushback side. I'd like to continue to be able to trust videos of people in particular.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it. And I'm on the same page as you, because this is advancing so fast. And when you get to the point that you don't even know if that's a real person you're watching, that all that, I think it's going to be difficult to deal with. And so yeah, from my own perspective, yeah, I think it's important to be doing your own videos and be doing the webinar yourself. And
Gotcha. Fair enough. Yeah, cool. Let me ask you about the marketing for a minute here, right? Because I know you had obviously some video examples, Pinterest posts, all that kind of stuff. What do you find, and this is AI, if AI helps, obviously, but just in general, like what have you found is the most effective way to get people to watch your webinars?
yeah, you know what? One of the things I love to do is I'll actually take the transcript from the webinar or even social media posts or whatever, and I'll put them into AI. And then from there, I'll say, okay, help me create a YouTube title and description that's optimized for SEO, and give it some prompts like that, and it helps me write those. And then I'll do it separate for anywhere I'm posting it. So I might do that for YouTube, and then I'll say now give me one for LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, wherever I'm putting it, and get it to help me create those.
Nice. So you don't even have to think that much about that part. You just work with the AI to get what you need, huh?
Yeah. But again, I mean, I think the important thing with AI is not just taking what it throws at you too, because I think that's the easy way, but I don't think it's always the best. And there have been a lot of things that it's given me something and I'm like, you know what? That's really not me. That's not how I would say it. That's, my audience would question, is that Jeff? And so then I will kind of start from scratch or give it some prompts to change things.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think that's where some folks that are especially getting started with this stuff may not realize that, the way it talks can be adjusted, right? So if you get a response that's not what you want, you just give it feedback, right? I mean, you just sort of, are you, when that happens, are you just saying, that's not how I talk, or are you saying, no, that's not it, but here's some examples, or like kind of how much guidance do you typically give it from that point?
I'll usually try to give it some specifics. This is what I want you to change to
Okay.
this way. And one of the things I did when I first started using it is I took a lot of my own blogs, a lot of my own transcripts from different things, and I loaded it and said, I want you to learn my voice, how I speak, how I talk. And it's been pretty good using that and having it understand when I say using my voice, how I do speak.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. So it's almost like the more you give it, the better it's gonna get at this stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I've noticed too. And like I said earlier, there's been a lot of things that I'll be working on a project and I will say, refer to something that I've done in a different project, and it's been really good. But at the same time, I was actually working on a project last night on a newsletter for our Confident Athlete program, and in there I referred to 2 podcasts I had done, and I said refer to the interview with Josh and the interview with Heather, and I didn't give it details, just in my mind thinking it was going to know exactly what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And it gave me the output, but it wasn't real. You know, it was, no. It threw in some motivational thoughts and stuff, but it didn't actually connect to the podcast I was referring to. So then I put in the full names and a little bit more detail, and then it was perfect.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So being specific is really crucial there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, let me ask you just 1 or 2 more things here. I know we're running out of time, but obviously you talked a lot about the different kinds of organic distribution and posting you're doing. Do you ever do any kind of paid traffic, or are you just pulling everybody from organic sources for these webinars?
For the most part, organic. I do have a Facebook paid ad going right now, and I did use chat to create the content for that.
Nice.
How that's going? It's been live for like an hour, so I don't know yet.
Yeah, can't judge it based on 1 hour. That's for sure. Yeah, takes the AI behind those algorithms a while to dial in too, as well. So, well, very cool. So I guess the final kind of question here, Jeff, is tell us about the webinar. Let's say somebody wants to attend this thing and maybe wants to sign up to see it. I mean, for one as an example, but maybe also more importantly to see what you have to offer and see what you got going on. How can they go about doing that?
For sure. All of my links can be found on my website at jeffheggie.com, but this one specifically, if you want to look at this one, how it came together, it's jeffheggie.com/business-opportunity. And it's just it's an opportunity for someone that wants to create a side hustle, and we outline the whole opportunity that's there. So
wow, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of folks looking for I work with a lot of real estate agents right now.
Okay.
A lot of them are looking for side hustles because the market has been rough for a while. So I could see that being really attractive. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this. This is fascinating. I mean, personally, I do create a lot of webinars, and obviously saving time is a big part of that. But being able to make better formats, better structures. I mean, I think the good news is this is a tool we can all use and we can get better with. And the bad news is so can your competitors, and I'm sure that a lot of them are starting to do this stuff as well. And so I think it sounds like the floor and kind of the expectation people are going to have for us in these experiences is just going to continue to go up. But good news is you can pull from the experts now, right? And you can basically have the experts writing your webinar structure for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think there's so many unknowns with AI right now. But I think it's a tool that we can really take advantage of. Like I said, you don't need to be an expert to start taking advantage of it. And as you start to use it more and more, you learn. You use shows like this to continue to figure out how to use these things. And I think it's going to be a tool that we're all going to be able to use to better what we're doing.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, Jeff, this has been fascinating. So I want to just say thank you so much for sharing this with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks. Appreciate you having me on.
Well,
Nick.
thank you, folks. Thanks for tuning in if you're watching or you're listening at home. And this has been another episode of Teach Me AI. I'm your host, Nick Niehaus. I want to thank you for watching us and join us for our next episode. We'll talk to you then.